New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Hello and welcome back to Global Focus Today. I am Reverend Dr. Sharri Johnson, and my guest today is a returning guest. The last time she was here, we had a blast, so I know you're going to love it. She's one of those people who does my favorite thing, that is juggle a chainsaw, a bowling ball, and a raw egg. She is a full-time staff minister. She is a full-time mother of two of the coolest kids in the world. Ask her, she'll tell you about them. And she has a full-time job in the bargain. I mean, she does everything, and it's so much fun to talk to her. So, did I mention she's a stand-up comic like me? Is that fun or what? So please help me re-welcome Reverend Dr. Tiffani Milne. Yay! Welcome back.
I love that introduction. That's great. Did you say I have a full-time job working at the bar?
No.
I was like, not exactly.
I mean, you probably could do that as well, but that would have added another thing to the juggle. And
that's true.
You pretty much got a load now. So what's new and exciting in your life since the last time you were here?
I'm just really excited to be here. I'm very excited to be here. We were talking backstage. Anson has become something so near and dear to my heart that getting to participate in it in any capacity is a real honor. So I'm just excited to see your face and to be here with you.
Well, now, in that case, what I didn't mention to you backstage is that you need to contact, he is now actually going to be Reverend Dr. Robert Brzezinski from New Thought Media Network, who hosts this. That's the platform that we're on it now, because he is preparing a video called I Am Anton, and he's looking for people who are willing to do 15-second videos. All you got to do is make an appointment with him, and you can be part of it.
I'm in. I will definitely reach out to him. Oh, that's awesome.
So tell us a little bit about what you do at the Global Truth Center.
Yeah. So I became a minister. Well, I'm the resident thorn in Dr. James Mellon's side, really.
That's an important job.
It's a very important job. I kind of fell into Reverend Doctor. I became a minister in 2020. I was a pandemic baby, and then got my doctorate in 2022 and went to the Emerson graduation at Anton. And it's kind of one of those things where I found Science of Mind, and I was like, they're talking about the things that I inherently believed. I didn't know that there was an actual organization that believed these things that I thought I came up with. And I just dove into studying, and I just started taking classes. And then I met Dr. James, and I was like, that's my mentor. Like, he's the one that I need to study from. Because
it's Dr. James Milne.
Dr. James Milne,
Senior minister of the Global Truth Center in Los Angeles.
Yes. He was living this teaching, and not only living it, but he was still cool, and he was still rebellious, and he still had that sort of renegade spirit. Because I always thought, once you become a minister, then it's like you have, forget the comedian, that goes out the window. And there was an expectation of what a minister was. And so I wasn't interested in any of it. And then, but I wanted to just keep taking classes, and I was just so hungry. And so the next thing was being a practitioner. I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to be a practitioner. And went through practitioner studies, and then, ministerial. What's the next class? What's the next class? And so when I was in ministerial, before practitioner and before ministerial, Dr. James would sit down and ask you why do you want to be a practitioner? Why do you want to be a minister? And both interviews, I was like, I have no interest in doing this at all. I just want to keep growing. I like what it's doing for me in my life. And then at one point during my ministerial studies, Dr. James said, have you ever thought that maybe it's not all about you, that this teaching's giving you so much that maybe like there's an element of helping other people, or, or sharing with others, like the gift that you've been given. And I was like, oh, wow, he really knows how to just give it to you straight. And so when I got my ministerial license, he was like, all right, he didn't really give me much choice. And so I sort of dove headfirst into being a staff minister. And then he was like, all right, I'm not going to be here Sunday, so you're taking over the, center stage and presiding. And I'm really grateful, that he's always given it to me straight, and that he had enough love for me to tell me the truth about that, because the greatest gifts in my life have come from just being willing to it's not like I'm a minister because we think that I am going to like change the world or revolutionize anything. It's like to be able to authentically live in my own skin, comfortable in the world that I live in because of this teaching, and to be able to authentically share that and have a platform to do that. Not only is a gift for me, but I think it's really made my world so much richer.
So you have discovered that you are not doing ministry. You are a minister. Minister's not what you do; it's what you are.
Yeah.
Oh my!
Yeah, because everything you touch is ministry. I'm a different, I'm a different leader at work because I'm a minister. I show up. I'm a different mom because I'm a minister. So I don't really know what being a minister out in the world always looks like, or like doing ministry. But I'm very grateful to be a minister.
See, that's why this show exists, because there was a time, and it was way before COVID. There was a time when minister was a cookie cutter. And if someone was a minister, you knew what they did, you knew what they thought, you knew what they taught. Well, you knew what they did in public. You knew what they thought. You know what they taught. But now there are as many different kinds of ministry as there are humans on the planet. I mean, every one of us is unique. Even the ones who have pulpits are unique. And doing life and having ministry be a side gig doesn't work very long, because what happens, of course, is that the side gig just kind of infiltrates the life.
Well, I think there's an authenticity. Like, I think I thought how could a stand-up comedian be a minister? Like, and was I never going to be able to swear again? Because I'm not sure I can do that. Like, and I had this idea of what a minister was, and it just wasn't me. And as I went along, when I was like, oh no, I am a minister, and I can authentically be that and still continue to grow. It's not a destination where you arrive to, where it's like, oh, now I'm perfect, and now I never have any, errant thoughts or things that I need to work through. I think there's almost that element of the more authentic I can live, warts and all, the more impact and power I have as a minister, as I'm growing and evolving as myself, sort of more publicly, because it's a lot easier when you're doing it privately, right? Like I'm going through something and I'm growing and I'm evolving, and then I emerge as who I think the world wants to see. But to be able to have enough of this teaching and enough sense of self to be able to do it out loud is, I think, more impactful.
I think what
Nobody
you're
has
doing
anything to
is
learn from
taking off
somebody.
the brakes.
What?
I said, I think what you're doing is taking off the brakes.
Yeah.
You know, especially I did stand up too. I still do stand up. And I know that sometimes you just kind of step outside of things. Part of doing stand up is stepping outside of things. And imagine my shock when I discovered that that's a ministerial tool. Being able to step outside of things, that's a ministerial tool. That's a powerful spiritual tool.
Yeah.
So, you know, you and I are ahead of the game on that one because they don't teach that in ministerial school.
They don't. Well, I feel like when that's the thing that drew me to Dr. James is he does teach that in ministerial school to a large degree. There is that element of life is unfolding perfectly no matter what, and that there's God in this too. Like as God, as knowing who I am, I can show up to anything, any challenge, and still know that and still feel it too. It's not, sometimes we think like there's that spiritual bypass of, I know a greater truth. And so I'm going to throw a bunch of affirmations at this and pretend like it's not happening. And the reality is that I am having this experience and I am attached, when I experience love because I am love, I'm going to get attached to people and things because that's that law of polarity, right? Like there's grief is love. And so, like I can use the example of when my dad passed away. I was in ministerial when my dad passed away, and it was very, very painful. And I was having sort of a crisis of faith while I was in ministerial because, we use the term transition, and I do believe that it is the next iteration. But when you have so viscerally lost somebody and somebody says it's just a transition, I'm like, no, he feels very dead to me right now. He's not here, and he was here, and he's not here with me now. So yeah. And even though in my heart, I knew I believed this teaching and I know this teaching, it wasn't giving me the comfort that it had always given me. But what the teaching gave me, and what Dr. James in particular and his method of teaching ministers, was the ability to feel it and to have the pain and to still stay tethered and to know that life is unfolding perfectly no matter what, even if I can't see it right now. Like, and it gives that space to be in pain.
Yep.
And not have to bypass the pain, but to also have that 30,000 foot view that knows that everything is, and to be able to get to the other side of that. I have a greater understanding and a greater compassion for people going through grief because I experienced it. And I didn't bypass it in any sort of way.
I'm on an interfaith council here in Kansas City, and we had a meeting yesterday, and the topic of spiritual bypass came up from another New Thought minister, and all of the non-New Thought ministers went, sad. So between us, we did a little talk on spiritual bypass, and I think what it boiled down to is that spiritual bypass is like bullfighting. It's when you take that red flag of here's what I believe and here's what I know, and you wave it out here someplace instead of wrapping it around you to keep you warm. Mm-hmm. When you use your spiritual practices as a detour for the pain instead of as a way through the pain. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really glad you brought that up today. That's something that's oddly enough, that's a New Thought idea. It's not a New Thought practice. It's not a new practice, but it was the New Thought movement that really discovered the power of a bypass, and the fact that you can turn the bypass into a throughway if you want to. So that's great. So what's new with my grandchildren?
Oh, they're amazing. So my son is going to high school. I cannot believe that. I'm way too young to have a high schooler.
That's right.
Um,
You were in
and
kindergarten, right?
what?
I said you were in kindergarten, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So they're 14 and 9. My daughter is going into the 5th grade and they're home for the summer and they're a delight. It's funny because I always thought, I don't know what people always talk about teenagers being difficult. And I think on some level, I was waiting for that moment where I was going to like, oh, now's the moment where I don't like you very much. Or, or whatever. I always had this theory. It's a little dualistic. But that God makes babies cute so you don't kill them and teenagers jerks so you'll let them leave. And so I just assumed that that's what I was in for. But what I'm finding is that they're really cool people. Like, yes, they're my children and I love being a mom more than anything. It's the greatest gift I've been given is those two people in my life. But I really understand that I'm their tour guide. They don't belong to me. They have their own life, their own path, they're their own people. And it's just my job to love them and be their biggest cheerleader. And so as I watch them from that point of view, evolving into these amazing people, like my son, my 14, almost 15-year-old is my favorite person to hang out with. Like he's a lot of fun. And so I'm actually in a lot of ways enjoying this period of their life more so than when I miss the cute things and the baby stuff. Don't get me wrong, but watching them grow into their own people is really magnificent.
Some of the deepest, most fulfilling philosophical discussions I ever had were with my son between the ages of 10 and 18.
Well, I think they just get it. They just get this.
They do, and they don't have all that crap on the outside to peel off before they can get to it.
Well, it's interesting because this has come up a lot in conversation in terms of like where religion is going. It clearly like people are stepping further and further away from organized religion and why is that? And, my personal theory has been that my generation and below has a very low tolerance for hypocrisy. Like if it doesn't come out as true and authentic and ring true in their hearts, we're not interested. That's why I rebuffed organized religion and still struggle with like, I'm in one, but it's not like that, where it's like, no, I'm a minister, but I promise I'm cool. I'm not like that.
One of the keys of conscious evolution is building a really good BS meter.
Yeah.
It just is. Yeah. It becomes part of your consciousness. And it is at the consciousness level that the BS happens and that the detection of the BS happens and that the avoidance of the BS happens. So teenagers are great at that.
They're amazing. And even my 9-year-old, like they don't really love having a mom as a minister. I mean, they're very supportive. They come to hear me speak, like they show, but like they're like, don't talk about me. Like, don't talk about me, or having to, be the kid of a minister, so they're like, sometimes I just want to roll out of bed and look messy. So, but they understand this teaching at a cellular level, not because they're like paying attention. We have an amazing at our center, Reverend Connie Milner, who runs the children's church, is amazing. She's just phenomenal. And I'm grateful to have her in my village, helping me raise these two. But even if they never heard a word of it, and if they didn't have a mom as a minister, there's something inherently in them that like just authentically lives this truth. They understand who they are in such a dynamic way that I'm like, God, I learned so much more from them. That's what it's like. I'm clear that I'm just their tour guide because they know way more than I do.
Well, it's that line from Enemy Mine, that very old movie. About an Earthman and a reptilian, androgynous, amphibian foreigner from another planet who crash landed on an asteroid. But the best line, and I bought this movie back when they still cost a whole lot of money to buy. I bought this movie for one line. And the line was truth. is truth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we're born knowing that. I really believe that children are born knowing everything they are ever going to need. They are born without any awareness of a separation between their own consciousness and the divine consciousness, the infinite consciousness. That awareness has not been developed yet. And then we very carefully build that awareness for them and pile a whole lot of crap on the outside of who they are and what they believe and what they know and what their powers are. And then if they're really lucky, by the time they're about 23, 24, they figure out what we did to them. And they spend the rest of their lives peeling all that guck off, getting back to the perfection that they already knew was in there.
I really struggled in this teaching to really grasp and understand some of those concepts, like you're perfect, whole, and complete. And I'm like, but what does that really mean? And what I realized is, like, I was able to understand my own perfection because when I had my kids, you could not convince me that they're anything short of perfection. There's just something so miraculous about them. And, you have these religions that are like, we're born in sin and things like that. And I look, those children were absolute perfection to me. And one day I had this aha. It was actually while I was in practitioner training. It took me that long to figure it out. And then some. I was in practitioner and I was like, oh my God, if they were born with that perfection, then I was born with that same perfection too. And from that place, I was like, oh, there's the starting point, right? Like that's authentic. That's what we've been saying all along, that at my core, who I am, the allness of me that I was born into this world as, is perfect. And that from that place, all healing is possible. All, that there's that in me that's never been touched or tainted by any experience, suddenly really opened up and made sense to me because it was so clear to me that they were absolute perfection.
That's the key, I think, to why Dr. James is such a fabulous teacher, because he doesn't let you stop at learning about something.
Mm-hmm.
You have to learn it all the way through. You have to learn it completely, and you have to be it. You have to experience it. You can't just read about it. You can't just learn about it. And that, I think, is probably the number one task of any minister. It's to be the truth that this person needs to have, who's standing in front of you.
His mantra is question everything in class, and I really put that to the test because I wasn't willing to accept anything on blind faith. I was like, but how about, and because I needed to understand it at that level. And I think he was so, and always has been so receptive, that it's like he delighted in the rebel in me rather than trying to squash it. That really allowed me to flourish and really changed my life because he was willing to let me not just stop at because I said so, because that's what Ernest Holmes said, because that's what's in the book. And even he is like, hey, at the end of his life, what he was saying is very different than what is written in the Science of Mind textbook of 1926. We need to be continuing to progress and evolve and to grow and to not stay stuck in that. And I am 100% confident that there's nobody else could have taught me or tolerated me, quite honestly.
So what's the, well, I'm going to ask you a couple of related questions here, but the first one is, what's the most fulfilling piece of what you do as a minister? When you have your ministerial hat on, what's the most important, powerful, fulfilling thing you do?
I had the pleasure of getting to assist Dr. James in this last ministerial class that he's teaching, the most recent ministerial class that he's teaching, and sitting in that classroom from day one when everybody comes in terrified and not knowing what to expect, and then watching, the process of evolving. Sometimes when you've got a very upfront seat, is not the most glamorous or graceful, and it's clunky, and you grow in like spurts and then stagnate for a minute, and so I sitting in the classroom the whole year, not really truly appreciating what I was getting to witness and experience. And then we had panels in June, and I was sitting there watching these ministers, these people that had somehow over the course of the last 2-year program, but that crop that were in their final year. I was just watching them and seeing who they had blossomed into, and getting to be a part of it, and getting to be a part of their journey, and getting to support them through that, and getting to be a support to them. I remember my panels. It was absolutely terrifying, absolutely, going into that room and being, questioned. And I was like, oh, this is, all those years ago when James said, when are you going to realize it's not only about you? It felt like it was this full circle moment of me getting to be a part of somebody else's journey on the same path that I'm on. That really, really touched my heart.
I've had that honor of serving on ministerial panels a couple of times now, and crack panels before that, and it's a gift to be on the panel. It's terrifying if you're the person coming into the panel, but it's a real gift for those of us who are already sitting there.
For sure. And I've always said the magic is in the classroom. That's where it happens. That's where you grow. That's where life changes. As great as Sundays are amazing. I love a good Sunday sermon. I love giving them. I love receiving them. I love the party. If you want to change your life, you change your life in the classroom. That's where it happens. And that's so right. Getting to be a part of that, getting to teach. I love teaching. And I love being able to inspire and empower other rebels who question me and take me to task, and make sure that I really believe, because if you don't really believe this teaching, if it's not really in every cell and in your heart, you can't teach it authentically, and you can't answer those tough questions. We have a running joke at Global Trans, not a joke, but that first year in the classroom where you're teaching these concepts, and you're teaching that life unfolds perfectly, and you're teaching that there's only good in this world, and all of these things. And then people have the hard-hitting questions. They're like, oh yeah, it's only good? Like, well, what about Hitler? What about all these bad things that happen in the world? And you can only answer those types of questions if you really, really have embodied this teaching. Otherwise, it'll derail you. So nothing makes me feel more solidified in knowing what I know than getting to be taken to task in the classroom and asked those hard-hitting questions. I live for it.
Oh, that's the perfect lead-in for my next question, because what's the hardest?
Are you going to ask me what about Hitler? Don't ask me that.
No. I find it fascinating that it doesn't matter what tradition you're in, Eastern, Western, North. That is the epitome of evil that everybody clings to. And I have answers for that, but that's for another time. The question I want to ask you is, what is the hardest part? What's the most challenging part of being a minister for you, now that you've done it for a little while?
I think that the most challenging part that I've had, that I feel like I'm just now fully, is finding my own authentic voice and finding what's mine to do. I think I spent so much time bucking the system, which is great, because that's, I think, how I always tell my kids, the world's never been changed by the most and best behaved, that there's value in questioning and driving and being a change agent. But to settle in and to say, this is mine and I have a place here, and to let go of any insecurity about what it was supposed to look like, and to just show up as my most authentic self. When I first started, when I first became a minister, and James let me, God bless Global Truth Center, he let me have the pulpit almost right away. And I'm privileged to be able to preside, when he's on vacation and things like that. And the first couple times that I got out there, Dr. James said to me, you did really great, but like, who's that church lady out there? Like was like, off stage, I am, brash and, and loud and animated. And then suddenly I became very, and here's what I know. And so being comfortable enough to live authentically, which means having to say, I struggle with some of this stuff too. But here's what I know about it. And that's where I think being a minister versus doing ministry comes into place. It's not that I don't ever have belief, you have those, like, you've evolved and you've grown, you've worked past something, and all of a sudden you have this belief and you're like, where the hell did that come from? Like, again, I don't want to do that again. But I think being comfortable enough in your own skin to allow for that to be okay and to not have to be anything other than who I am as a minister has probably been the most challenging part, but also the most rewarding. And I think the most healing, because I'm like, oh, you know what? I like me. I'm pretty awesome.
What they don't teach in ministerial school that would be really, really helpful is that everybody goes to ministerial school. And in ministerial school, all of the people in that class get the same training that everybody else in that class gets. And then what you turn out is a group of ministers who are in many ways alike. And no two of them are going to do ministry the same way.
Mm-hmm.
No two of us are going to do ministry the same way, no matter where we were trained, no matter who trained us, no matter who we started out to be or who we ended up. No two of us are going to do ministry the same way. That's why this show is here.
I love it. I think it's great. And you're right. And there's, what's that? I don't want to say a bad word, but there's a seat for every tushy. Like, not everybody, I'm not going to resonate with everybody. No. I'm not. There are going to be people, I don't make Broadway references. Dr. James is, there's a lot of Broadway references in his Sundays, and I've never been on Broadway. So
that's part of the authenticity you were talking about a minute ago.
Yeah, absolutely. to show up as who you are. And I think to get comfortable enough to say, I'm not going to resonate with everyone. Dr. James is saying, if you're not being fed here, don't come here to eat. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that I have to change who I am, because because if I'm not authentic, then I'm not touching the people who are meant to be in my orb and who I do resonate with. Because I do think that, my generation and the younger generations, there's a real gap, right? There's got to be something between, devout Christian church on Sunday, never say a swear word, everything's a sin, and no real road to faith at all, and being a completely devoid of anything. And my hope is that on some level I can be that bridge for people.
Goody, what a great segue. Thank you, because we're coming up on the 3 big questions. The 4 big questions. Okay, and the first one is, how does what you do at Global Truth Center and what you do everywhere else, because you don't only do it at Global Truth Center, how does that support, enhance, reveal, and as of last week's class program, encourage participation in world peace?
I had a really big aha about that a while ago. I think I may have actually talked about this the last time I was on your show, about how I was asked I had to give the Sunday talk right after there was a mass shooting in Texas. And it felt very daunting to be able to rally a community and have the right words to say. And I was very impacted by it. I have school-age children, and it's scary and it's painful. And I felt the pain of it. And yet my goal, or my job, was to get up on a Sunday and to inspire. And I was really struggling with it for the couple of days leading up to it, because I didn't know what to say. And the epiphany that I had around this was, I can't pretend that that anything is not related and connected. So if I'm having these little, I don't have the luxury of having messed up relationships in my own personal life and thinking that I'm not contributing to the greater, chaos and things that I don't want to see coming out into the world, that we're each contributing to it. And so in some, big way, small way, whatever, if I go into a Starbucks and I'm rude to a barista, I'm contributing to the discord that's happening in the world, and that it's all connected. And so what my job is to clean it up, like literally clean it up, and to live my life from a place of love only, to make sure that I am spreading that love, which then I spread that love onto my children, who I believe are the generation that can fix this, I spread that love to my community. I spread that love to everybody who turns on a camera or shows up to the Global Truth Center. I bring that love to Anton when I show up to the conference or when I show up to this community, and that is how we spread it. So I don't have the luxury of having a bad day and being crappy to my husband or all of those things. And not that I do it perfectly, I don't, but ministry really is a commitment to a consciousness. It's not a steady state. It's not that I live there 100% of the time. It's that I'm committed to getting back there as quickly as possible when I don't. And so that's how we each contribute, is by cleaning up your own backyard.
I asked that question second, and I asked this one first, but it occurs to me that the order of the questions doesn't matter because they're that related. And the second question is, how does what you do, how does who you are really contribute to, encourage, enhance participation in conscious evolution?
I think that, it's interesting. Thomas Troward says that the purpose of life is to experience, to be in joy. The only purpose to life is to joy. And I've really questioned that recently, because I think that really our purpose is to experience. We're here having an experience. We experience love, we experience joy, we experience grief, we experience, a myriad of different things. And if we're awake enough, then we allow those experiences to evolve us towards a higher level of consciousness. And I think that collectively, when we're with like-minded people sharing that experience, awake enough to allow that experience to evolve us, then we are contributing to the collective consciousness. There's only one mind. So really, my job is not to change your life, to change your world, to make anything happen for you. My job is to authentically experience my life and to be awake enough to allow it to evolve me. And through that experience, I am contributing to the collective evolution.
Excellent. Okay, here's the next one.
I like
10
this.
years from now, presuming that every single teeny tiny little detail of your life goes exactly the way you intended to go, what does Reverend Dr. Tiffani look like?
I think more loving, continuing to let the vulnerability was a 4-letter word for me when I first started in this teaching.
But you learned that weak and vulnerable are not synonyms, right?
Absolutely. But I was very guarded, very self-preservation mode all the time, had a very hard time letting anybody in. And it's been a real process and a part of my journey to allow the edges to soften, to allow people in, to allow community, and to love freely. And my circle keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger as a result of it. And so I think that for me, what I do, out in the world, or, the job that I have, or my station in life is really just an evolution and a byproduct of, I mean, that's what we teach, right? Of what's going on the inside. And so for me, I don't really look at things in terms of like, what are my outward aspirations? Because I feel like through being more loving, being more authentic, being more honest, being more giving, being more willing to share myself with others, and warts and all, through that journey and that process, everything on the outside just sort of takes care of itself. So will I still be a minister? Absolutely, because I don't know how to live a life without it anymore. And it's so inherently in me. Will that show up in a bigger and more robust way? Absolutely. I'm on this journey. I don't know what it looks like, but I trust that is true for me. Will I be more prosperous and continue, or slightly less prosperous because I'll have a son going to college who currently wants to go to USC, which I just found out is $100,000
I'm not going to
a year.
affirm less prosperity for you. Kid's brilliant. He'll get a scholarship.
That's right. No, and I will have. We will be fine and be able to pay for it. But my husband and I just had that conversation. He was like, he couldn't have picked UCLA, where it's $30,000 a year. He had to pick USC, and that could change too. But all of that will take care of itself, because that's just who I am. I just want to continue to love more freely and live more authentically. And if I can do that, then it's a successful life.
Oh, then there's only one question left.
Okay.
Will you come back?
1,000,000%. This is so fun. I am very, very grateful.
The next opening is May 7th of next year. Can I pencil you in?
May 7th. That's my dad's birthday. Yes, you can pencil me in.
How wonderful. We can talk about your dad.
I love it. I'm in.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And everybody, please do come again, because, hold on, I got to find my note that says who's next. Next week, we have Reverend Catherine McClellan from the Center for Conscious Living. She is also a returning guest who blew the top off the last time she was here. And so I guarantee you'll learn something you didn't already know. And she's a newlywed too, so she'll be funny. Thanks for coming. Bye-bye.
Amazing, amazing, you will do amazing things. Amazing, amazing, you will do amazing things.
On behalf of everyone at New Thought Media Network, thank you for being a member of our virtual family. Your financial contributions help share the New Thought message with people from around the world. Please visit and contribute at www.ntmedia.org/donate. New Thought Media Network, come be you. And please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, peace and blessings.